Hi, everybody. It's David again, and we are back with the opposite of cheating pod, blog, vlog, podcast, whatever we're choosing to call it this week. Uh, we're here this week with Jessamyn Neuhaus and Kate Marzen of Syracuse University. We're incredibly lucky to have their time today, and we'll get to hear about some really interesting initiatives at Syracuse and some really interesting work over the years in the field of teaching, learning, and now academic integrity. So welcome to the video.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thanks for having us.
So, Jessamyn, would you mind starting? Tell us a little bit about how you came to be here, your work starting from Plattsburgh and beyond, and
Sure.
how academic integrity is affecting your work nowadays.
Sure. I'm currently the director of the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence and professor in the School of Education here at Syracuse University. Previous to this role, I was a professor in the history department at SUNY Plattsburgh for 19 years and taught as an adjunct and contingent faculty member at a number of different types of higher education institutions before that. I'm a scholar of teaching and learning, and some viewers might remember my 2019 book, Geeky Pedagogy, A Guide for Intellectuals, Introverts, and Nerds Who Want to Be Effective Teachers. I was also editor of a book called, a wonderful collection called Picture a Professor, Interrupting Biases About Faculty and Increasing Student Learning. And my newest book just came out in July, Snafu EDU, Teaching and Learning When Things Go Wrong in the College Classroom. And it was just published in the Oklahoma University Press series, Engaging and Thriving in Higher Education. Um, as far as actually, that might be a good place to pause. I'm going to hand the mic to Kate, and then we'll get into the second part of the question.
Sure, sounds great. So my name's Kate Marzen. I'm the Director of Academic Integrity here at Syracuse University. I have definitely been in the field for a much shorter time than Jessamyn, and so I don't quite have as many experiences, but I have worked in the misconduct space for almost my entire higher education career, whether that be academic misconduct or student community standard style misconduct, so beyond the classroom engagement, or Title IX. I was a Title IX coordinator as part of my previous role before I came to Syracuse University. I've been at the institution for about 2 years, just over, and I've worked in academic integrity the entire time I've been here. While I am not a professor, I do teach our FYS 101 classes, which is our introduction to the university as our first year seminar course. Depending on the needs of the department, I teach 1 to 2 sections each fall. I really enjoy teaching the course because it provides students a connection to a member of the academic integrity office that's really proactive and positive, rather than seen as an office that solely engages in consequences or punishment of any kind. So it's a really great connection to the university that I really love. It's a seminar style class where we engage in rich discussion across lots of different topics, including things like our local community, how students can engage with each other, belonging, resiliency, things like that.
That's one of the things that Trisha and I preach via Kath Ellis's work is that academic integrity should be somebody's job. And it's all the better when it's somebody's job who comes at it with the approach that you do, which is not just consequences, proactive, personal, all those sorts of things. It's amazing how much benefit comes downstream from having somebody in a spot like yours. And so I think people will be very interested to hear your perspective as we talk. So maybe back to you, Jessamyn, how did you start thinking about your work with respect to academic integrity?
Well, I think my journey is very typical of a lot of people who become college professors. I got my PhD and landed some of my first teaching jobs with zero background in any kind of pedagogical approaches or scholarship. I knew nothing at all about teaching. I knew a lot about my subject. I knew a lot about how to be a really critical thinker and advanced writer in my subject, but really nothing at all about how to help students do that. So it took a long, long time, a lot of work, a lot of reading in the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning to become an effective teacher. And which again is something that many, many people experience, many faculty members and instructors experience that approach to the classroom. My starting point then was as a scholar and graduate student, which was my job is to catch a student cheating. That was the lens I saw it through. What changed over time as I really delved into the scholarship of teaching and learning and discovered more and more and more about effective teaching was that it was academic integrity is a skill like any of the other skills that I was so good at, but the vast majority of people entering my classroom were novice learners in those skills. So that reframing was really the big turning point for me. And I can't remember it being specifically about academic integrity, but more that it was folded in to everything I was learning about how to help students effectively learn and succeed. And I think today, even more so when generative AI is so dramatically reshaping the conversations about what do we even mean by collaboration, that reframing is the one I keep coming back to. That what I want to do as an educator and also then help faculty do is help students learn how to do things, and academic integrity is one of those things.
Learning first,
Mm-hmm.
the opposite of cheating, I dare say.
Smooth.
So Kate, your path's really different, and I think a lot of folks who work in academic integrity come at it from an approach that follows your path. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think it's really fun to work with Jessamyn because we have come to the same conclusion, but our paths look very different from each other, which is a really great aspect when we're bouncing ideas off each other and having these collaborative conversations in our office. But I'm actually a K-12 teacher by trade. That's what my undergraduate degree is. I taught in the K-12 classroom before I moved to higher education. I really love working with college students and having those developmental conversations with young adults. And I realized very quickly that higher education was my spot. And so when I think about my K-12 training, I think a lot, one of my biggest focus areas is the zone of proximal development. So when you think about tasks for students, you think you have to find that happy medium of things that are too hard are not great and things that are too easy are not great, and you have to find that happy medium. I'm also very good at crisis response. That's what my higher education training is. And so how do I combine those two? And academic integrity really kind of fits that unique spot, which is a really interesting place to be because I'm really good at helping students in difficult situations learn something. And so providing them those learning opportunities in a tough time where often conversations start out pretty negatively and we can typically find the light together and find the learning moment together is really significant. And so I was working in Title IX and I realized I wanted something a little bit more narrowly focused in the academic affairs side of the house. And so I really think about academic integrity as a way of helping students learn something in a time of stress and time of pressure, and how I can provide mentorship and guidance during those really difficult conversations.
That really matches, both of your stories match my experience, which is kind of how I wound up where I am, because I worked in student affairs as a faculty member with a joint appointment, and so I really got to see all of the things that both of you described without the K-12 background. So I was more like Jessamyn, trying to figure it all out as build the airplane in the air, as Trisha likes to say. So yeah. So I could ask how both of your work intersects with the opposite of cheating, but let's do it in kind of in two parts. Sort of how does your trajectory intersect with it? So the things you have been doing, and then the things you've been doing recently, which are pretty neat as well. Kate, you want to go first this time?
Yeah, sure. So it's the trajectory and then what we've been working on lately. I think I'm in my third year in my position, and I think every year we make steps to continue to improve academic integrity and learning processes through our office at SU. It's been a really great time. I think, your first year you spend a lot of time just learning your job. And last year we took a really great step in the fact that we now have student participants who are paid to be a part of our office, and so we're demonstrating to our student leaders that we value their time enough to provide not just volunteer opportunities but paid opportunities. And this year we're really expanding that, as well as finding new ways to reach students about academic integrity in positive and proactive ways. So the biggest thing that we did this year is that we created a gamification opportunity to learn about academic integrity through our first year seminar program, where about 90 students came through our office and they did an academic integrity themed escape room that
Oh, wow.
took quite a few months of planning, lots of test runs and trial runs with colleagues here at SU. It was a really fantastic opportunity, and I think that students really enjoyed it. I was determined to create a low tech, no tech opportunity for students to learn about academic integrity, in which I did almost no talking, right? I wanted them to learn from each other. I wanted them to build connections. I wanted them to have a positive memory associated with academic integrity. And I wanted them to realize that we were a trusted resource on campus that they could come to if they had questions. And so we spent a lot of time building a 5-module academic integrity escape room that focused on common violations that we see in our office. And so plagiarism is something we still see. Inappropriate collaboration is something that we consistently see. Lots of people think artificial intelligence is everyone's top violation, and it's not. We do have a module about artificial intelligence, but it's a larger focus on following instructions. That's really a skill that needs bolstering as well. So that's the big thing that we've been working on in our office, and we did it with lots of help from CTLE and other offices on campus. And then we'll see where it keeps going. We're really, really working hard to be proactive and future focused and developmentally focused on our students rather than a case management office. So.
That sounds amazing. I hope you're going to publish that somewhere, or at least present it at
That's
a
right.
conference. I can think of 200 people who would want to hear about that.
Yeah,
not being at the top of the list.
We submitted a proposal for ICAI. We'll see if it gets accepted. Hopefully, maybe this will come out after that proposal, so that the person who's saying I should present is not listening to this podcast. But
Well, I know a few people. We can see what we can do.
So.
Yeah, I nagged her relentlessly to present on this and talk about it. And it's actually one of the ways our work intersects this kind of approach to the work that we help people do is hard work. And teaching is hard work, but it does not have to be a joyless, enervating slog. And so really, my top priority when I'm working with faculty when it comes to academic integrity is let's make your teaching life a little better and more enjoyable, which includes reducing the labor around navigating a student's possible violation of academic integrity policies. So my work really comes in, just like Kay was saying, her office too, in being proactive in course design, in communication with students, with selection of assessment processes that will help students learn and reduce the difficult conversations and processes that have to happen if there is a violation or even a suspicion of one. So really, like, it's funny, both of us really are in the business of trying to increase some joy in higher ed, which still sounds so radical to my nerdy intellectual ear. You know, our job is to help you have more fun, but the academic integrity office's gamification approach is a real emblem of that. Like, there really doesn't have to be just relentlessly awful experiences. Even in these fraught and frightening times, we want the student experience, we want faculty teaching experience, all instructors' experience to be as good as it can be. And the other overlapping thing from my work and Kate's is the students as partners approach. She mentioned the student ambassadors positions and student roles in the academic integrity office. The CTLE also as one of its sort of signature programming emphasis is on students as partners. We have a students consulting on teaching program coordinated by my colleague Ebony Graham. And we try to bring student voice into conversations around teaching and learning as much as possible. We're currently, all of us, Ebony Graham, Kate, Ashley, and myself are working on some student panel events where students will come and discuss some their perspectives on generative AI, open to faculty, staff, anyone who's interested. And we've already done a few in some isolated programs, and we know that's going to be a really effective way that we can contribute to the conversation, is having this space where faculty and students, instructors and students, staff and students can really talk through some of these issues together. We are all about, hey, maybe you could talk to each other.
I'm a huge fan of students as partners. We're coming from an honor council school for all those years. We didn't have a word for it, but it's exactly what it is. And it's really fun to go to an event like an honor convocation that's by and for students, and we are the ones invited to it. And just you got to keep them on track. And it's a lot more work to help somebody do something than to do it yourself. Usually that's kind of the point of teaching, but it's wonderful. And I resonate so much with the idea that teaching can actually be fun. I think at least some of us started this job because teaching is fun. And then the work, like most jobs, it has the ability to squeeze the joy out of it. And so to add it back in is just such a wonderful way to think about this. So I know that the two of you facilitated the opposite of cheating reading group. And I'm hoping that you can tell us some ways that we were of help in this endeavor.
I mean, I already have my answer, Jessamyn.
Go ahead, Kate.
Okay, so one of the sentiments you will hear when spending time in the Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence at SU is a center, and then the Office of Academic Integrity is within that center. And so we share a communal space. And if you're spending any time in that communal space, one of the biggest things that you will hear, myself, Jessamyn, Ebony, Ashley, anyone, when talking or consulting with anyone, is, have you had a conversation? Did you talk to students about it? Students, did you talk to faculty about it? Having a discussion is so difficult, but also so significant in the learning experience of students, of faculty, even of staff. Everyone benefits from having the conversation. I think the opposite of cheating, and specifically on page 183, is when I have it marked, dog-eared, highlighted.
I sure don't.
Highlighted everything, because it's something that we say every day. And so it's so nice to have colleagues and partners across the globe who share the important sentiment of having conversations. I think so many academic misconduct violations or classroom snafus or lesson plans that you thought were going to be great and just missed the mark, all of these could be changed and the outcomes could be improved by those conversations between faculty and students. And so you all providing additional research and documentation and conversations or information about having conversations was really significant. I think a lot of the faculty in our book clubs really resonated with that. And I think it really opened the doors for us to be able to provide future consultations on how to have those conversations. So conversations are not easy. I think we recognize that they are layered and they are complex and there are lots of emotions involved, and especially frustration when it's our life's work and we feel like somebody violated trust and expectations. However, they are so significant to helping a student learn. And so the opposite of cheating, I think, really opened up a conversation about that for me, at least, and Jessamyn and faculty, knowing they can come to us, we can help them prepare for those conversations, but their significance is really amazing.
That's such a great thing to hear. Thank you.
I think any book club can be really, really transformative for for faculty and instructors, educators, staff, anyone doing any kind of teaching, because it carves out time and space to reflect and discuss. And reflect and discuss is our jam. Most of us in higher ed are pretty darn good at it. And it almost feels like a luxury to have time and space to discuss teaching. It shouldn't be, but it feels like that often for people. And in particular, what a Center for Teaching and Learning can provide is a place for multidisciplinary and across different stages of your career groups to gather and discuss. I think especially at this particular moment when there are so many stressors on people teaching in higher education, including the rise of generative AI, it made our discussions even more, I would really say, it's like supportive and help people feel like they're not alone. Teaching in higher education is so strangely isolating. It really is a closed classroom door culture, and many departments don't even have conversations about teaching on a regular basis, like let alone conversations where people feel free to share, wow, that really tanked, or I really don't know what to do about this issue. And our conversations, the group was from a range of disciplines, different stages in their careers, and we had really frank and I think uplifting, ultimately, conversations about the challenges we were navigating and different approaches we were trying, just not feeling alone in in this really complex issue, and really sort of pulling apart all the things that might be going into it and different strategies to try. And I will say just one more thing about it. And Kate, you can tell me if you saw this as well. But it often happens that in the course of conversation about a book and the topics being raised, information about our own campus community can arise. So Kate got quite a few questions about just some of the academic integrity policies and procedures in a way that was, again, proactive and productive, not crisis driven, not fear driven, but with the book as a springboard for discussion about it, which I think is ultimately really empowering for everybody involved in that conversation.
It's great to hear. I mean, I know that I sometimes talk about academic integrity work as being the garbage people of academia. No one wants to hear from you. They want to know that your job is working well, and they only notice that it's not working well when things start to stink. And you know, you never win awards in academic integrity because your job, if your job is successful, then you avoid problems. Right. The problems we solve are never the ones you win awards for. And that's fine. That's great. But it's sometimes nice to know that there's other people. That was my favorite thing about going to the ICAI conference for the first time, is discovering there are other lunatics like me wanting to do this work. You both mentioned the notion of proactivity, and I want to just sort of veer off whatever little script we have and talk about proactivity. What's one thing that's come out of your experiences, each of you, that an individual instructor might pick up on to try to make the learning experience more resistant to academic misconduct, but also just a better learning experience? And we wrote a book about this, but what do you do that you like best, either from the book or elsewhere?
Well, I think for me, and in my own work and when working with faculty, a key point is really the relevance of what we're asking students to learn. I was a history professor for a long, long time, had many, many, many students taking my class for general education. The relevance, point, and purpose of what was asking students to learn how to do had to be transparent to them. or just the motivation to do it was not going to be there. And as I often say, if she's heard me say it once, she's heard me say it a million times. It's not students, it's human beings. Nobody's brain wants to work overtime on something that seems pointless. Our brains are smarter than that and want us to take whatever shortcuts available if it doesn't seem meaningful or purposeful to us. So I'm often harping on it. It's a point for my own teaching as well. Supporting, finding ways for students to identify for themselves, how are they going to use this? How is it applicable? Why is it important and meaningful? And ideally, not just in their own life, their own, like, say, career goals, although that's good, that's a start, but even more like, how will it help them engage in the world? How will it help them do something that really matters out in the world, in their other classes, as a human being? Anything we can do to give students space time to identify that, because I can't tell them this is how you're going to use what I'm asking you to learn. They're the ones that know. So that's kind of my biggest point, and I that has always that's going to stay the same, no matter what generative AI does or doesn't do. To do that cognitive labor of learning, it has to seem relevant and meaningful. I know that's hard for people who love their scholarly subjects like I do, like we nerds who got advanced degrees. The meaning and purpose of our subjects is completely obvious to us, but not to most of the people in our classes. So giving them that support to do that is kind of my number one go-to.
And I totally love that. And I completely agree. And for those who don't want to make changes to their courses because they're afraid of rigor or other, they already have too much to do. How can they add one more thing? This is free. Talking about why things are relevant takes neither time nor grading points, nor changes in your content. It just it's just a change in the way you talk and think about your work.
Or
So
asking students to do that. Just
exactly,
do that for themselves. And
exactly.
those are fun to grade. Like that's always my ace in the hole. Like it's not just that it's going to help students learn. It's not that's going to improve students' academic integrity, but that would be fun to grade. Like reading and seeing what students think about that they could use your subjects for. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's great. I give a lot of student choice projects,
Hmm.
which have a similar role in a different way.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm getting a TikTok. I'm getting a set of TikToks this semester. They have to propose what they're going to do, and so one of my students is writing a set of TikToks on I think eugenics or something like that.
Hmm.
It's a history of psych class, so I can't wait to see that.
I love that, David. That's also what I was going to say is I spend a lot of time building trust with my students, two-way trust. And so my students are very comfortable telling me when they don't like something, which is fine. That's what I want to hear. But I think I emphasize a lot that the learning is the goal and the process and how we get there and the journey we can tweak. And that's okay. And if you have a different idea of how you'd like to get to this end goal, and maybe it's easier for me because I'm part of such a large cohort of instructors who teach the same material. But, we have course goals and course outcomes that we all need to meet. And we have these 4 projects that you need to do. However, if there's a way that we can tweak the project or how you present it and things like that to make it more meaningful for you and to provide the student with more choice, I always try and do that where I can. And my students know that they can come and share lots of information with me. I think building that trust early is another thing where you say, you don't want to change the coursework. Building that trust with those students you don't have to change your coursework to have those two-way open conversations and to be honest about the material, where we're going, and what are the possible pathways to get there. I think the other thing that I do to mitigate academic misconduct concerns early in the classroom is I say it to Jessamyn all the time, but my catchphrase in the office is to talk about academic integrity early, often, and casually. And that's how I instruct all instructors to talk about it. So start on the first day, talk about it around every assignment. And when I say casually, I don't mean minimization. I just mean build it into the conversation naturally and apply it to each of the assignments. So that students are very clear about what their expectations are, because the clarity around expectations can prevent a lot of, can proactively encourage student engagement and prevent a lot of concerns in the future.
Yeah, clarity was going to be the other thing I mentioned, and actually, Kate, Ebony, and I are going to do. We've done a couple. We're going to do some more. We have an interactive presentation workshop on transparency in the age of generative AI, but it's really transparency, full stop. That clarity in what you're asking students to do, why, how it's going to be assessed, how they're going to demonstrate their learning, just the need for crystal clear, like Kate, you said earlier, just instructions, point, purpose, how it's going to be assessed, and that you really you cannot be too clear and transparent. And there's zero reduction of rigor in providing more clarity and transparency. And again, it's not like some newfangled notion, transparency. This is proven, and David, as you discuss in the book as well, this is a absolutely proven, tried and true fact about teaching and learning with decades of research to show clarity increases students' ability to successfully demonstrate their learning and their knowledge. And it just so happens to also decrease the possibility of academic misconduct and, like Kate said, increase that trust and clarity at a time when the confusion around some of these issues because of generative AI is maybe super high right now. So transparency could not be more relevant.
I mean, Whitley in 85 or 87, I think, published a paper that showed that the quality of teaching, by which we mean transparency, structure, organization, and the execution that it all, was highly associated with students' perceptions of the quality of the instruction and then academic misconduct downstream. So, I mean, it's not exactly like you said, novel. It's not rocket science.
Right.
What it is difficult to do well every time. Excellence is a habit, right? You don't, writing a great syllabus and reusing it is great, but it's every day that you have to try to achieve this.
Well, yeah, and clarity is actually harder when you know so much about something, and trying to be clear, like it's crystal clear in my mind what I'm saying about this assignment, but that does not mean that I'm communicating it clearly, especially to novice learners in that subject, or even fairly experienced learners who don't have these decades of work that I've done in it in their minds. So and like I said before, like even we might not even as a human species right now be fully clear on, well, what is collaboration, uh, what is honest collaboration with machine learning, and what is not. We're figuring it out right now. So clarity around that, even just to say we need to talk about it because we all have different approaches right now, is so important.
I mean, plagiarism's been around since papyrus, and if you ask professors now, you still won't get consensus about what is actually okay and what's not. So yeah, I mean, there's no reason to think we're going to have clarity about AI anytime soon. It may just get slightly less unclear.
Well,
Let me.
we like I just was gonna say in the for Kate's escape realm, I could hear the conversation. I was sitting in my office listening, and I could hear the the conversations students were having, like debates and lively conversations students were having about, well, what is this? Does it count or not? And with the gamification approach, and in this environment where there's no penalty for the wrong, for saying the wrong thing, and there were some that there weren't even exactly right or wrong answer. So there's definitely ways to do it that you don't have to scare everybody to death.
I'm going to put a bow on everything that we've just been saying. Well, it's very similar to what you just said, Jessamine, which is when you take the notion of two-way conversations that you brought up specifically, Kate, and you take the notion of trust, and then you fold that into transparency, what you're starting to see is a style of instruction that's very student-focused, that's
Mhm,
very process-focused. And
mhm,
I think if you read almost any of the good books on teaching and learning, Jim Lang's is just one great, well, actually about three great examples. You find they all start to sound alike, right? Be transparent, listen to your students. And so I think we've once again reminded ourselves of the importance of the fundamentals, right? That there's nothing fancy about doing this. It's just a reminder that we all have to be pulling in the same direction. And it's not always easy to do that, as you said, Jessamine, in a
mhm.
stressful world. Um, I think this is nowhere near enough time for this conversation, and I think I want to hear a lot more about Snafu EDU, and I want to hear a lot more about this escape room, and also how you sort of built your office up in your own image, because I think a lot of folks are hoping to do something very similar to what you've done at Syracuse. So let's plan on doing this again, separately
Sure.
or together. This is amazing, and I think our listeners and viewers are going to find this incredibly helpful. So thank you both very, very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
David.
for having us.